Do you remember Freddie Mercury? The man who could command a stadium with just a single note? The voice, the costumes, the swagger, it all looked untouchable. But behind the spotlight, there was a secret illness, a hidden loneliness, and a battle he refused to show the world. How did the most powerful voice in rock end up silent so soon? Stay until the end to see the rarest photos and the untold truth behind Freddie Mercury's final days. Freddie Mercury wasn't just a singer. He was a force of nature, an eruption of color, sound, and emotion that seemed too big for any stage to contain. In the late 1970s and throughout the 80s, he ruled the world of rock with a voice that defied logic and a presence that bent reality. He didn't walk onto a stage. He claimed it, turning every spotlight into a coronation. To millions, Freddie was invincible. The explosive stadium anthems, the glittering outfits, the magnetic confidence. It all painted a portrait of a man who had everything: talent, fame, beauty, power. A man who appeared to thrive in the chaos of stardom, feeding off the screams of the crowd like oxygen. But behind the image of a living god, there was another Freddie, fragile, conflicted, and quietly drowning in secrets he couldn't share with the world. There was the boy who grew up feeling misplaced, caught between cultures, identities, and expectations. The rising star who masked loneliness with noise and excess. The icon who built kingdoms on stage while privately fighting a fear he refused to name. And the man who, at the height of his power, was forced to confront an illness that threatened not just his life, but everything he had ever created. This story isn't just about fame. It's about the cost of creating a larger-than-life persona while your real self slowly slips into the shadows. It's about love, denial, brilliance, destruction, and the delicate line between myth and man. To understand Freddie Mercury's final years, his silence, his suffering, and the truth he hid from the world, we must return to where it all began. Long before Queen, long before Wembley, long before the legend, back to the boy who would one day become a king, and the fractures that shaped everything he became. Before the world knew him as Freddie Mercury, he was Farrokh Bulsara, a shy, thin, sharp-eyed boy growing up thousands of miles away from the bright lights he would one day command. His childhood began in Stone Town, Zanzibar, a place filled with heat, dust, and the constant hum of change. But for young Farrokh, it was not simply a homeland. It was the first stage of a lifelong battle with belonging. He was born into a Parsi family with deep cultural traditions, expectations, and strict moral codes. His parents, Bomi and Ja, loved him dearly, but they carried with them the weight of conservative upbringing, one that valued discipline, restraint, and conformity. Freddie, however, was anything but restrained. His imagination burned too brightly, too loudly, too uncontrollably. Even as a child, he felt like a foreigner inside his own skin. At the age of 8, he was sent away to a British-style boarding school in India, nearly 3,000 miles from home. The separation was brutal. One day he belonged to a family. The next he belonged to no one. The quiet boy with oversized eyes found himself navigating a cold, unfamiliar world of strict teachers, rigid schedules, and a culture that demanded obedience over creativity. Letters from home came slowly. Affection was rare. Vulnerability was a weakness. And so he adapted the only way he knew how. He built a shell. Inside that shell, however, something was growing. A restlessness, a hunger, a voice that demanded expression. He would sit alone at the school piano for hours, letting his fingers wander across the keys. Not following rules, not reading music, just feeling. Music, he discovered, was the only place where he didn't have to fit a mold. It was the one language where he felt complete. But even there, shadows lingered. While others around him fit neatly into identities, students, athletes, leaders, Freddie felt fractured. His Parsi roots, his British education, his Indian surroundings, his Zanzibar childhood, none of it aligned. He was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. His sense of self was constantly shifting, slipping through his fingers before he could grasp it. This identity crisis deepened when racial tensions in Zanzibar exploded in 1964. Violence erupted across the island, and the Bulsara family was forced to flee for safety. Their home, their community, their history, everything vanished overnight. They escaped to England with almost nothing. And in that moment, a young Farrokh learned a truth that would haunt him forever. Life can erase you in an instant. Moving to London did not make things easier. The family settled into a small house in Feltham, surrounded by a culture that viewed them as outsiders. Freddie's accent, his appearance, his mannerisms, everything marked him as different. He tried to blend in, but blending in felt like dying. He longed to reinvent himself completely, to shed the skin of the boy who never fit anywhere. And so he did. He began experimenting with fashion, with art, with a dramatic flair that would one day become his signature. He studied performers, not just singers, but actors, dancers, icons. He watched how they moved, how they owned space, how they transformed themselves into something bigger than life. He wasn't trying to imitate them. He was trying to learn the language of transformation, because deep down, Freddie feared truth he would never admit aloud. If people saw the real him, confused, insecure, torn between identities, they might not love him. And love, for Freddie, was everything. To protect himself, he crafted a persona, a louder, braver, brighter version of the boy he used to be. Farrokh Bulsara was shy. Freddie Mercury was unstoppable. Farrokh came from displacement. Freddie would conquer the world. Farrokh felt invisible. Freddie would make sure no one could ever look away again. But reinvention comes with a price. As his confidence grew, the distance between his true self and his public persona widened. Friends would later describe moments when Freddie's laughter seemed too big, too forced, like he was performing even in private. The transformation that protected him also isolated him. He was becoming a myth, even before he became a star. The seeds of his future brilliance were planted in those years of confusion, loss, exile, and longing. But so were the seeds of his future suffering. Because while the world would one day fall in love with Freddie Mercury, very few would ever truly know Farrokh Bulsara, the boy who felt he had to disappear, so the legend could be born. London in the early 1970s was chaotic, loud, unpredictable, exactly the kind of place where a young man reinvented himself could disappear and be reborn. Freddie Mercury arrived there with ambition burning in his eyes and absolutely nothing to lose. The moment he discovered the band Smile with Brian May and Roger Taylor, it was as if fate had cracked open a door and whispered, "This is where he belongs." He pushed his way into the group with a confidence that startled them. Here was a man with no successful band, no fame, no guarantees. Yet he walked in as if destiny itself were behind him. Freddie didn't ask to join. He declared it. And somehow, his conviction was so overwhelming that the others couldn't deny him. From the beginning, he demanded more, bigger sound, bigger vision, bigger presence. He insisted they change the band's name. Queen, a title that felt regal, theatrical, provocative. It was everything Freddie wanted to embody when he adopted the surname Mercury. Inspired by the Roman messenger god, the transformation was complete. Farrokh was gone. A legend was rising. On stage, Freddie was electrifying. He didn't simply sing, he detonated. Every movement was deliberate, every gesture larger than life. He wielded the microphone stand like a scepter, commanding audiences with an authority that seemed almost supernatural. People didn't just watch him, they surrendered to him. But behind the spectacle was discipline. Freddie studied opera, ballet, drama, vocal technique. He worked relentlessly, perfecting the art of performance until it looked effortless. Queen's rehearsals were intense. Freddie pushed his bandmates hard, but he pushed himself even harder. He wanted transcendence, not mediocrity. And slowly, the world began to notice. Their breakthrough came with Killer Queen in 1974, a song that captured Freddie's theatrical soul, blending elegance with subversion. Then came the album A Night at the Opera, and with it, the song that would rewrite music history. Bohemian Rhapsody. No one understood it. Radio stations hesitated. Critics mocked it. But Freddie fought for it with absolute conviction. He knew the song's complexity, its operatic chaos, its emotional turbulence, because it came from the deepest parts of him, from the boy who never fit, from a man who refused limits. When the music video aired, Queen became pioneers of an art form that didn't even have a name yet. And when the song topped charts around the world, Freddie Mercury was no longer a dreamer. He was a phenomenon. Through the late 70s and 80s, Freddie's fame grew to mythic proportions. Crowds didn't just attend Queen concerts. They experienced them. Wembley 1986 became the pinnacle. Freddie, in a bright yellow jacket, commanding 72,000 people like a conductor of human emotion. Every foot stomp, every extended note, every flash of his grin felt like a communion between a king and his kingdom. But success came with shadows. Freddie's charisma was magnetic, but also became a shield. Friends noticed how he changed, how the makeup got thicker, the clothes louder, the nights longer. Parties became constant. Partners came and went. Substances blurred the edges of his reality. He was adored by millions. Yet privately, he felt increasingly isolated. The persona he created, bold, confident, untouchable, began to feed on him. Still, on stage, he was unstoppable. The chemistry with Brian, Roger, and John was undeniable. They weren't just a band. They were a universe built around for contrasting elements, with Freddie as its blazing sun. His vocal range, unmatched emotional expression, and fearless experimentation pushed Queen into territories no rock band had dared to enter. But the higher Freddie soared, the more fragile he became. He lived between extremes, intimacy and loneliness, ecstasy and exhaustion, adoration and inner turmoil. The boy who once felt invisible was now seen by the whole world, yet rarely understood by anyone. The glory was immense. The crowds were infinite. The power was real. But so were the cracks. And soon, those cracks would widen into something darker, something that even the brightest stage lights could no longer hide. As Queen's fame exploded, Freddie Mercury's world became a collision of extremes. Glittering highs under the spotlight and suffocating lows behind closed doors. The larger he made his persona, the smaller he felt inside. And with every empire he built on stage, a quiet, aching emptiness grew within him. The nightlife of the late 70s and early 80s became Freddie's kingdom. He surrounded himself with extravagance. Lavish parties, endless champagne, velvet-draped rooms filled with strangers who adored his legend but barely knew him. In Munich and New York, his nights stretched into dawn, rooms lit with neon, thick smoke, loud music, and bodies swaying in a haze of desire and escape. To many, it looked like freedom. To Freddie, it often felt like anesthesia. He was searching for something, comfort, identity, connection, but each night left him feeling more adrift. The man who once reinvented himself to be loved now feared that if anyone saw his true vulnerability, they might turn away. So he hid behind excess. The louder the world became around him, the quieter his inner voice felt. As Queen toured relentlessly, Freddie drifted into a double life. Freddie the superstar, adored and worshipped, and Freddie the man, uncertain and lonely. His relationship with Mary Austin, once the emotional anchor of his life, had shifted. He had confessed to her that he was attracted to men, a moment that reshaped everything between them. Mary didn't leave him. She stayed as his closest friend, his confidant, his soulmate in a way beyond romance. But the shift left Freddie searching for intimacy in places that couldn't fill the void. He found himself lost in relationships marked by intensity and volatility, seeking passion as a way to feel alive. Some of the men he met stayed only for fleeting nights. Others became part of his inner circle. But a constant shadow followed him. Fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of exposure. Fear that the world he built would crumble if his secrets came to light. The more he tried to escape that fear, the deeper he fell into excess. Some nights he looked invincible, dancing wildly, laughing too loudly, throwing his head back as if nothing could touch him. Other nights, close friends recalled seeing him withdraw into himself, eyes distant, lost in thoughts he never voiced. Fame amplified everything. Pleasure, danger, vulnerability. Then came the whispers. A new illness was spreading through communities in the early 80s. Mysterious, deadly, misunderstood. Headlines called it the gay plague. And paranoia seeped into every conversation. Freddie, already living with layers of secrets, felt an old terror rise again. He, who had spent his whole life running from labels and judgment, now faced a world quick to condemn. Around this time, his performances became paradoxical. On stage, he was godlike, roaring into microphones with fire. Off stage, he was quieter, more contemplative, sometimes exhausted in ways his friends couldn't fully explain. Some nights he stared into mirrors as if searching for the boy he used to be, wondering how far he had drifted from himself. The darker side of fame tightened around him. Reporters dug into his personal life with predatory intensity. Cameras followed him into clubs, into streets, into moments that were never meant to be public. They wanted scandals, secrets, slips, and Freddie, who built an entire persona to escape judgment, felt that persona slowly turning into a trap. His world became a delicate balance. Betray the persona and risk losing everything, or live behind it and lose himself. In the midst of all this chaos, one person began grounding him. Jim Hutton, a gentle, steady presence who loved Freddie not for the legend, but for the man. Their relationship didn't erase Freddie's turmoil, but offered him something he had rarely known: authenticity, safety, a place to exhale. Yet even as love entered his life, the shadows continued to grow. The excess, the secrecy, the isolation, the emotional storms, everything converged into a breaking point waiting in the near future. Because behind the dazzling lights and deafening applause, Freddie Mercury was fighting battles the world could not see. And soon, one of those battles would reveal itself in the most devastating way. The early signs were subtle at first. Small illnesses, unusual fatigue, occasional infections that lingered longer than they should. Freddie brushed them off, attributing everything to long nights, relentless schedules, and the chaotic rhythm of his lifestyle. But deep down, a quiet dread had begun to form, one he refused to name. By 1986, during the Magic Tour, something was different. His voice was still powerful, but moments of strain appeared where there had never been strain before. Close friends noticed he moved a little slower offstage. His energy, once volcanic, flickered unpredictably, and yet, night after night, he delivered performances so extraordinary that the world had no hint something was wrong. But Freddie knew. He felt a shadow growing inside him. In 1987, after a series of medical tests he hoped would prove his fears wrong, Freddie Mercury was diagnosed with HIV. The words felt like a death sentence, delivered in cold clinical tones. To the world, HIV or AIDS was surrounded by terror, stigma, blame. It wasn't just an illness. It was a headline, a scandal waiting to erupt. For a man who had spent his life constructing armor against judgment, the diagnosis cut deeper than any physical pain. His first reaction wasn't acceptance. It was denial. He told almost no one, not his bandmates, not the public, not even many of his closest friends. The persona he had crafted for decades demanded invincibility, and Freddie clung to that illusion with all the strength he had left. Admitting the truth felt like surrender, and Freddie Mercury did not surrender. But the illness advanced. The lesions, the weakness, the weight loss he struggled to hide, the infections that returned again and again. He began wearing heavier makeup to cover the marks on his face. He avoided photographers, avoided bright lighting, avoided any situation where someone might notice the changes. Behind closed doors, the battle became brutal. Some mornings he could barely get out of bed. Some days he was consumed by exhaustion that drained his voice, his strength, his spirit. At first, he tried to keep life unchanged, parties, friends, travel. But the illusion couldn't last. Slowly, he withdrew from the world, choosing privacy over performance, silence over spectacle. He spent more time at his Garden Lodge home, surrounded by a small circle of trusted people. Mary Austin, Jim Hutton, Peter Freestone, a few others who love him not as an icon, but as the fragile man behind the myth. When he finally told the members of Queen, it was in a moment of quiet gravity. Brian, Roger, and John were devastated, but they didn't pity him. They asked what he wanted. And Freddie, even in the midst of fear, knew his answer. I want to keep working, as long as I can. Music became his lifeline. Recording sessions replaced touring. The studio became a sanctuary where he could still be Freddie Mercury. Not the patient, not the man fading, but the artist. His voice, though weakened, carried a new emotional depth, a rawness that came from standing at the edge of life and looking directly into the abyss. Songs like "The Show Must Go On" weren't just lyrics. They were confessions. They were battles. They were Freddie's soul clawing for light in the darkest moments. He pushed his body beyond its limits, sometimes arriving at the studio so weak he needed help walking, But the moment the microphone stood before him, something extraordinary happened. His pain, his fear, his illness, they all vanished beneath a final surge of willpower. He sang through agony, turning it into art. The world remained unaware. Rumors circulated, tabloids speculated, reporters stalked him with cruelty. Cameras captured his thinning frame as he tried to live quietly, hounding him with questions he wasn't ready to answer. Freddie hated being seen like that, vulnerable, diminished. He wished for privacy, but fame wouldn't allow it. As the illness progressed, he faced decisions no one should ever face. He stopped taking certain treatments, knowing they would prolong suffering rather than life. He prepared his closest circle for what was coming. Though he never let despair consume him, he still cracked jokes, still laughed, still insisted on small moments of joy. The breaking point had already happened, but Freddie Mercury refused a break. He was a man confronting death, yet still fighting to create beauty. A man in silence, yet still commanding the world with his voice. A man fading, yet somehow brighter than ever before. His final chapter was approaching, quiet, painful, and profoundly human. It would reveal the deepest truth about Freddie Mercury. Even when the world saw a fading legend, he was, until the very end, a masterpiece of courage. As the 1980s drew to an end, Freddie Mercury began living a life that looked nothing like the thunderous, flamboyant chaos the world associated with him. His garden lodge home became a quiet sanctuary, warm lights, soft carpets, carefully arranged flowers, and an atmosphere of stillness. Inside those walls, Freddie Mercury began the most intimate, vulnerable chapter of his life. The fight against HIV had taken its toll. His once powerful frame had become thinner, his movements slower. His face, once radiant with theatrical expression, now carried the quiet exhaustion of a man battling a relentless enemy. Yet for the first time in many years, Freddie wasn't running from anything. Not love, not fear, not even the truth. He began to accept his fate. Jim Hutton, his partner, became his constant companion. Steady, gentle, undemanding. Jim wasn't captivated by the myth of Freddie Mercury. He loved a man who woke up quietly in the morning, who drank tea by the window, who sat at the piano with trembling fingers, trying to coax music out of pain. Their relationship was simple and sincere in a way Freddie had never truly known in his youth. In those final years, love softened the edges of his suffering. Mary Austin, the love of his life, in another form, remained close, managing his home, protecting his privacy, offering stability that had followed him since young adulthood. Freddie entrusted her with everything, his estate, his wishes, his heart. She was the only person he once said could never be replaced. As his illness progressed, Freddie withdrew further from the world, seeking dignity in isolation. Paparazzi camped outside his home. Tabloids published cruel speculation. They wanted pictures of weakness, of decay. Freddie refused to give them that satisfaction. He rarely left Garden Lodge, and when he did, he hid behind sunglasses and coats, slipping in and out of cars with the help of those he trusted. And yet, even as his body deteriorated, his voice still burned. The studio became his refuge, the one place where he could still transcend the limits of his illness. Brian, Roger, and John knew that every recording session might be the last. They adjusted everything, the lighting, the temperature, the schedule, to accommodate Freddie's fragile condition. But when he stepped in front of the microphone, something extraordinary happened. The transformation was immediate, almost supernatural. Pain faded. Weakness evaporated. Freddie Mercury returned. He pushed through songs that would challenge even a healthy vocalist. These are the days of our lives. Mother Love, A Winter's Tale. Each performance carried the weight of a man who understood he was singing his final truths. There were moments when he struggled to stand, but he insisted on continuing. "I'll do it when I'm dead," he joked through gritted teeth. His humor never left him. His final video appearance, "These Are the Days of Our Lives," captured the haunting beauty of his last glow. The makeup concealed the illness, but not the eyes. His eyes told the story, gentle, tired, but filled with an acceptance that felt almost serene. At the end of the video, he looked into the camera and whispered, "I still love you." It was a farewell disguised as a message to the world. In private, the illness worsened. Freddie's eyesight weakened. He needed help walking. Simple tasks became nearly impossible. He made the decision to stop taking AZT and other medications that only prolonged his suffering. He wanted peace. He wanted dignity. And he wanted to leave quietly on his own terms. In those final months, he invited only his closest friends. They spent evenings reminiscing, listening to music, sharing quiet moments that felt suspended in time. Freddie no longer needed applause or adoration. The world outside could keep its noise. Inside Garden Lodge, there was only warmth, love, and the gentle fading of a man who had once burned brighter than anyone. On November 23, 1991, Freddie finally released a statement confirming he had AIDS. It was a message not a confession, but of liberation, ending years of speculation, and reclaiming control of his own narrative. 24 hours later, surrounded by those he loved, Freddie Mercury passed away. No crowds, no spotlight, no spectacle, just silence, just peace. For a man who had lived so loudly, his departure was heartbreakingly quiet. But in that quiet, something profound lingered. The realization that Freddie Mercury had faced the unimaginable with courage, love, and an unbreakable will to create beauty until his final breath. His last years were not defined by illness, but by truth, not by fading, but by becoming more human than ever. Freddie Mercury's death did not silence him. If anything, it amplified his voice in ways even he could never have imagined. The world that mourned him in 1991 did not simply lose a singer. It lost an entire universe of artistry, rebellion, vulnerability, and brilliance. What Freddie left behind was not just music. It was a blueprint for what it means to live unapologetically, loudly, and authentically, even in the face of fear. In the days following his passing, tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Fans lit candles outside Garden Lodge, leaving flowers that covered the gates like a living tapestry of grief. Radio stations played Queen songs nonstop. His voice, once echoing through stadiums, now drifted from living rooms, cars, and cafes, an omnipresent reminder of the man who had given so much of himself to the world. But Freddie's legacy extended far beyond mourning. His death became a turning point in the fight against AIDS. When he publicly confirmed his diagnosis just one day before he died, he shattered a wall of silence that had surrounded the disease for nearly a decade. His announcement forced the world to confront its own prejudice, ignorance, and cruelty. Suddenly, AIDS was not a faceless tragedy. It had a voice, a story, a global icon attached to it. Organizations saw a surge in donations. Awareness campaigns grew louder. Public conversations shifted from blame to empathy. Freddie didn't just change music. He helped change humanity's response to one of the greatest crises of the 20th century. Artistically, his influence became immeasurable. Countless performers, from pop stars to rock legends to opera singers, cite Freddie as their guiding light. His range, his theatricality, his ability to command a stage with a single gesture set a standard no one has truly surpassed. More than technique, Freddie taught artists to embrace contradiction, to be powerful and fragile, loud and quiet, extravagant and intimate, all at once. Queen's music, fueled by his voice, found new life across generations. Children who were not even born when he died grew up singing Bohemian Rhapsody and We Will Rock You as if they were timeless chants written into human memory. The 2018 film Bohemian Rhapsody introduced Freddie to an entirely new audience, transforming him into a myth reborn. The world rediscovered him, not just as an idol, but as a man. But perhaps the most profound legacy Freddie Mercury left behind was the permission to be yourself, even if the world doesn't understand. He broke boundaries of identity, sexuality, and expression at a time when doing so was dangerous. He showed that greatness comes not from perfection, but from embracing every part of who you are, even the broken parts. Behind the costumes, the lights, the charisma, Freddie's true power was vulnerability. He lived with secrets, with pain, with fear, but he never allowed those things to dim his brilliance. He gave everything he had to music, even when it cost him his health. His final recordings stand as a testament to a man who refused to let death steal his voice. Today, Freddie Mercury is not remembered for how he died, but for how he lived, with fire, with passion, with defiance, and with a soul too large for any stage. His body is gone. His voice remains. His legend grows. And his spirit, untamed, unapologetic, unforgettable, continues to ignite hearts around the world. Freddie once said, "I won't be a rock star. I will be a legend." He was right, but even he underestimated just how true those words would become. In the end, Freddie Mercury's life was not defined by the disease that took him, nor by the secrets he carried, nor even by the fame that lifted him to unreachable heights. His story is a story of a man who turned every fracture, every insecurity, every exile, and every fear into something transcendent. He didn't just sing, he resurrected himself through sound. When he stood on stage, it wasn't confidence the audience saw. It was courage. The courage of a boy who felt he didn't belong anywhere, transforming himself into someone the whole world couldn't look away from. The courage of a man who faced loneliness by pouring his soul into music. The courage of an artist who, at the edge of life, still walked into the studio and gave everything he had left to the microphone. Freddie lived like a flash of lightning, brilliant, fierce, impossible to contain. And like lightning, he left marks on the world that will never fade. His voice still echoes through stadiums decades after he last set foot on one. His songs continue to unite strangers in the kind of collective joy only true art can create. His story inspires those who feel out of place, those who feel different, those who fear their truth is too heavy to carry. Freddie showed them that difference is not a weakness, it is power. He never lived quietly. He never loved halfway. He never created timidly. And because of that, even as his life ended in stillness, his impact thundered across generations. Freddie Mercury walked this earth for only 45 years. But in that brief time, he lived more life, more emotion, more beauty, and more truth than most people could in 100. His legacy is not just in music, but in the reminder that brilliance often comes from the most fragile places. And though the man is gone, the voice remains, soaring, defiant, eternal. A reminder that legends do not die. They simply echo,